Welcome back. Great to have you with us on The Full View. Now, Mark Barnes is speaking out following his resignation from the post office last week. He was CEO. He took up the post at the helm of the beleaguered post office 3.5 years ago or so. He's been credited with avoiding the collapse of the post office. There's some cash in the bank, and a non-executive board member, Charles Nwaila, says under Barnes' leadership, the entity turned a corner and it is in line to break even by 2021. But the post office says Barnes resigned over differences on strategy, including the location of Post Bank. The COO Lindiwe Kwele has been appointed interim CEO. Well, to discuss, we're joined by Mark Barnes. Thank you for being with us. So you're not even outgoing CEO, right? You've vacated office. You haven't gone back to work since your resignation.
No, there's a new, very competent person in my place for now, and I'm there to help. I'm still available, and making sure we have an orderly handover. But I think, I think there are a couple of important things I'd say. First of all, there's a competent team in place in the post office group, and led by Lindiwe. And we had been talking for some time now about which team would take over from me anyway. It's not like a one day on, one day off thing.
Okay.
Right from the beginning of this year, we started engaging about what's the next phase of the post office group and so on.
Okay, but this was unexpected. You weren't planning to resign.
No, I wasn't.
Last time we spoke, you were talking about your vision for the future of the post office.
Yeah, and I think that vision might end up being intact, but this is where we are. It had been my case from the outset that a pure post office, so to speak, is not the way of the future, and the world experience, proves that. Postal services around the world that have been successful, all of them have offered an integrated offering that spans financial services, e-commerce, logistics, and mail.
Yeah.
And in the new and modern world, when you collect a parcel, there's a whole lot of value chain things that go around that. You have to pay for it, you order it on a computer, and for that you need access to the national payment system, and so you need this integrated offering. There are a number of reasons you need it. One, you all need to have common strategy. And so when there's an opportunity, take SASA grants, for example, there's no ways that either Post Bank or Post Office would have been appropriately equipped to run with SASA grants.
Can we just clarify this for viewers? So you wanted Post Bank to be an integral part of the Post Office. We understand government decided no, there would be two separate entities. Just tell us what's been going on behind the scenes.
There was some history. There was a time, when the solvency and the capital strength of the Post Office was in question. And so, National Treasury and other stakeholders took the view at that point in time that maybe the right place to hold a bank is not inside a place where capital is questionable. Okay?
Yeah.
Things have changed now. And, I'll argue that the Post Office is, is a solvent, liquid organization. And then you go to the strategy, which is, why do you want an integrated Post Bank that's within the Post Office stable? It's because you want to efficiently allocate capital. You want to sit there as a group and say, okay, we've got the SASA grants, for example, or we've got this next initiative. Where should we put the profitability? Where should we put the transactional revenue? Where do we want to grow? And you want that to be happening within an ecosystem that you're looking after. Otherwise, if you were to take a piece of that puzzle out, you now have to treat it with arm's length. Why would you, unnecessarily transfer profits into such an organization when it's not part of your shareholding structure?
So you've obviously thought about this a lot, but tell someone like me. So there are lots of banks out there. How would a post office bank have been different, offered anything different when there are lots of new startups? And at the same time, I do see companies doing things that post offices do, but doing them well and making profits, courier services, letting you track your mail, and people want that. They go and use it.
We do those things as well, by the way, but that's exactly the point, actually. You have to be relevant, you have to be resilient, you have to be reliable. Okay. So if you look at what's happening in the banking space in South Africa, LSM 1 to 4, no one's banking them. Okay. They're being banked by micro lenders at costs that they can never afford. So credit has become a destroyer, not an enabler. First point.
Capitec?
Capitec doesn't bank down there. Okay.
Yeah.
They bank a higher up level than that. Second point is that we have the most extensive footprint. We are obliged to have the footprint. If you look at the news, you'll see all banks are closing their branches. We're not closing any branches. We are obliged. We have a social mandate which says we will have a point of access in a rural area whether it makes commercial sense or not. When the banks all close their branches, there'll be one branch network standing.
Yeah.
You can order whatever you like, for instance, over the internet, that iPad. Unless you get it physically in your hands, you don't have it, okay?
Yeah.
So you need physical access. And for a lot of our population, the first point of access to the formal economy is the post office. Go to any small town in this country and you'll find the center of the town is where the post office is. Now, inside that thing is a bank, okay? And so you can do all of the necessary support, access to the national payment system, collect your social grant, deposit monies, draw monies. All of those things should be at one point of access to make them economically efficient. In the good old days, the post office was a monopoly and a utility. Those days are over, as you've pointed out. There are competitors all over the place. So we have to be able to offer a one-stop shop to the citizens of South Africa or to all the people that live in South Africa on a two-way basis. There's lots of business. When we took social grants back into the fiscal circle, we saved the country an extraordinary amount of money that was being made, as it turns out, by a foreign company.
Yeah.
And so we're building capacity of the state, using state assets and state capabilities. And it was self-evident, I think, to management and supported by the board that this integrated strategy, if you walk into a post office in any modern Europe, you walk in and you'll go, do you want a bank, do you want a post, do you want to get a parcel, do you want to, they're all within the same room. And that's the way that post offices have become relevant. At the time of Brexit, over 90% of the foreign exchange transactions were done in post offices. Swiss Post is one of the most efficient postal interactions in the world. China Post, 60% of their revenue comes from finance. The most successful listing in Japan 3 years ago was Japan Post. These are no longer post offices. These are commercially irreplaceable footprints, infrastructures, that have specific functions like clearing customs, settling transactions, all of that sort of stuff. Postal revenue in mail is declining, but in parcels it's growing extraordinarily.
So are you frustrated? You weren't allowed to do this? I mean, the post office said this separation was amicable. Was it?
Of course it's amicable. We've got bigger things to worry about than fighting with one another, man. That's not what it's about, okay? I had a particular way that I'd like to have seen that happen. The shareholder, who's perfectly entitled to see things differently, saw it differently. And so, if you are at idem with your ultimate share, if you're not at idem with your ultimate shareholder, you can't be charged with implementing the strategy. Okay. And so we just got to a point where they see a different way. I'm not saying it won't happen. There's a competent team in place. We've got a fully comprehensive executive team that's been fully replaced over the last 3 years that knows what's going on. I don't sort the mail. They sort the mail. I didn't operate the banks. I didn't get the SASA contract. We did as an integrated team. That team's in place. Lindiwe runs that team, and she was a significant player. We were a great partnership. That might be something that we've lost. Okay,
Yeah.
We were a great complementary partnership, and we need more of those. And if I might say one more thing about this, the time we should spend matching up the policy imperatives of the shareholder, the social requirements of the country, and the commercial realities that we have to bring to bear to make those things sustainable. And then if we all decided who's got to do what, and let ourselves do what we're supposed to do, and trusted each other and held hands, I think these things are going to start working.
Well, you're not the only public servant who has resigned of late, saying I wasn't supported in my strategy.
Well, I was supported by the board. I think there was a different way to do it. I don't want to. This was amicable, and it was amicable for a reason. Sometimes you have a different way that you want to get to things, okay? And if it's someone else's way, may they succeed.
Yeah.
I hope the post office, we've built a platform.
So you're not willing to say government's blocking sort of new ideas?
No,
you
government has got their own strategy and they're perfectly entitled to it. And government, by the way, gave us the capital 3 years ago and again last year to make any of this happen. So we didn't do this without government. Government presided over social grants. We didn't do this in the absence of government. We've just reached a divergent path.
So I'm glad you bring up social grants. Let's sort of backtrack and look at what you've achieved. And you got the post office in the fray, said we could do it. People were saying the post office will never be able to deliver social grants. There were some glitches, there were delays, then everybody was crossed. But how is that going right now? So talk about the social grants, and then There was another thing that, do you regret? It did hang over your tenure, which was the inability to sort of deal with the backlog of posts. People were saying still, the main service isn't working. The
You've got to
post
get
office is
yourself
useless.
up to date, Francis. You've got to get yourself up to date. Okay,
Are we fully out of that?
We are fully out of it. We're up to date. I think we're 2 days backlog in JIMC or Tambo. Okay, so and that was the lady who's going to run this place now. That was her doing. We got a new head of operations. She was a COO, and we fixed that. Okay, we had 48 million parcel backlog. If you go out to our Tambo today, we're up to date. Okay. We're at something like 80-something% of the standard. Okay, so we are delivering mail. Okay, that's the first point. As far as social grants is concerned, again, that's got very little to do with being a post office. Money doesn't move around in the back of trucks. It moves around inside a computer, and our bank has got an uptime that is competitive to the entire banking standard. It's been around for 100 and something years. It's a perfectly functional bank with 6.2 million depositors. Yeah. The world's changing. Let's look at data. Okay, we've got 17.5 million grant beneficiaries, 11.2 million addresses, 6.2 million depositors, millions of people do MVLs. We are a center of data, okay, which we can virtuously mine for the benefit of the citizens of South Africa. Okay, so if you go back to, can we deliver ordinary mail? We are delivering ordinary mail.
So are you happy with what you've achieved? Have we got a
stable labour force? We do have. And all of those kinds of foundations, I think, serve the future of the Post Office Group well. I hope they find a way to do it their way.
So are you happy with what you've achieved, what you were able to achieve?
Well, one's never completely happy. Always could have done better, of course. But I'm happy that there are some things I'm happy about. I think there's a different culture in the place. I think if you walk around, people are feeling a bit more confident about themselves and their ability and the prospects of their economic dignity. Because one of the primary drivers for me going to the post office in the first place was to see if it could be used as a vehicle to bridge economic inequality. By using the sovereign cost of capital and using the post office, post bank branch outlet, we would like to see a world where we can commercially fund SMMEs at a rate which enables growth rather than kills it.
So, quick final question. People were excited about the fact that you came from the private sector with new thinking. Does your resignation mean that these two worlds remain so far apart?
No.
Private sector, public sector, or can there be a meeting of minds, innovation in public sector?
There absolutely has to be, and there will be. At some point in time, we'll start trusting each other, we'll start passing the ball from one to another, and we will find this fabulous Venn diagram of policy, social mandate, government purpose, and commercial capability finding themselves. Of course it's going to happen. It has to happen.
All right.
There are lots of people that want to do this. Tumamina.
Thank you for being frank about what happened. Not the outgoing, the former CEO of the Post Office, Mark Barnes.